G'day, Chris here, Flat Tank Journey. I'm back working on the guards of the Velocette because it's easy and I'm just stalled with some other stuff. I'm in the shed, got a bit of YouTube going behind me. I've paused that so we don't get copyright problems. And I'm just working on these guards. Now, I could just leave them as bolts and that'd be simple, you know, wouldn't be hard. But the hot rivets work really well. I'm just enlarging this 1/4 inch hole to 7mm so we can slide a red hot rivet into it. Let me enlarge this. Now 1/2 mil's not exactly difficult to take out. Then I've got a bag of pre-made rivets now I bought off the internet and I've nearly used them all. So here's 4 rivets and they're 1/4 by 3/4. They're 3/4 long. So the 3/4 goes through the hole really comfortably, but it's too long for beating over. You have too much material inside. So let me slip away to the vise and I'm gonna cut these down by about, I suppose, 1/4 inch, make them 1/2 inch. Leave that with me and I'll be back in a second. They're not hard to cut down. You do have to knock the little burrs off the edge though, because the hole is a tight fit. 1/4 inch, 7mm. It's only, 0.5, but once you've heated the rivet up, it expands a bit. This is my little riveting jig and my bending jig and a whole other range of things. Come and have a look. I'll show you what I do. Here it is. Now, I just made a depression with a drill bit to put the head of the rivet in. Some of my early attempts, if you smack the rivet from this side and it's on a hard surface, you flatten the top and it doesn't look great. This is not perfect, but it's better. So that's the way I go about it. Now, I've got a scented candle burning to light my torch off because I haven't got any matches and I don't have the striker with me. So it is what it is. Don't judge me. Rightio. I did the first rivet and just spent a couple of minutes gleefully explaining to you how I did it. And I realised I didn't have the camera on. So here's the second one. So just being careful that the material's now hot, I'm just enlarging the hole. It's 7mm now and the rivet slides through comfortably. Scented candles doing a fabulous job in the workshop and everything smells really, really good. I'll give it a fair blast. I like the rivets really hot, pretty much all the way to the head, so that you expand the rivet across its centre and close to the head, because on the outside of the material you're only holding it like a nut, but we actually want the rivet to expand in the material and on the outside for it to grab the material. Gets hot really quickly. You can manage with these little torches to hot rivet. It's great fun. Right, that's pretty hot. You do need to be organised to do this. We need that to go over. I haven't got a great angle at it. But it's peened over really well. So you can see the heads of the rivets are pretty good, not too damaged. And inside, the rivets are flattened over. Now, the bracket is warm to touch because the heat of the rivet is going into the bracket. I'm going to leave you there and we'll do the other two. I'm just going to shorten up the bolts in the middle so that I've got room to swing the hammer in there. If you're not careful, you'll miss the rivet and hit the guard, and it dents. And it annoys you later because you've got a high spot on the other side, and that's frustrating. Snip that up a bit, and I need to enlarge the hole. Of course, making a hole 1/2 mil bigger isn't actually as easy as it sounds, because the drill bit wants to grab, like you just saw it. Anyway, rivet goes through, pop that back in that little cup, fire up the torch again. Yeah, that one went really well. The heat transfer from the rivet into the material, into the guard, into what you're touching is actually reasonably quick and gets reasonably hot. So you do need to be careful. Also have heat transfer into this wooden topped bench that I need to be careful of later. I don't want to go away and leave that piece of steel on top of the bench. Right, need to enlarge the hole. Drill bit's loose. looks hot enough. This bracket's actually a little loose, which surprises me. We'll see how this one goes. Now that rivet went so much better than the first one that I'm going to come back and have another go at the first rivet and just heat the head of it and see if I can get a better result. That's taken a little bit longer to heat this time because the heat's being leached out into everything around the rivet. The bracket, the tinware, everything. Put it back in the cup you've got there. And that looks better. Pretty happy with that. That's a good result. Let me tidy up and be safe here and let a few things cool down. Hardware's still sitting where I left it last week, which is handy. This is a pig to put together because my hands are fat and arthritic and I can't quite get them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the hardware up through from the inside to the bolt on the top, and it'll make it easier for me. I'll bring you back when I've done that. So there's the bolt with a flat washer on the inside just to distribute the pressure of the bolt a little bit further with a flat washer. And then on the top I've just put a spring washer and a dome nut. I don't think there's any need for the flat washer on the top. Let me grab a socket, just give that a little nip up. Now it's not the greatest design in the world in there. Mr. Velocette really made that back bolt quite hard to do up. There's the front guard. Going to get the stays, put them on. If you follow me on Facebook, which is just Flat Tank Journey, it's a personal blog, you'll see that over the last weekend, while you were watching the first video, I took these stays and threaded them and put nuts on them, getting ready to bring them back and hot rivet. I'm trying to plan it out a little bit more. And this has got the dome nuts and the flat washer and all of that already on it and already ready. I've got tape on here that I marked these with. So I'm going to get the tape off and then we're going to put these guards on the bike. Leave this with me, a bit messy. I put masking tape on all of these guard stays with a written description of which one was which, so that when I came back, I have half a chance of putting things in the right place. You'd be amazed how difficult it is to judge where things go or where they came from later. Now I think my only issue with these guards will be whether I've got the back and the front in the back and the front, meaning was this the front of the guard? It's hard to tell later, and I didn't mark it. You think you're going to know, but you don't. And it's very, very frustrating. I've just cross-threaded the end of that. Now I need to cut it off and tidy it up. Bear with me. There we go. That's good. Rightio. This is kind of why I leave everything long, to make allowances for the things that I get wrong. Actually, get wrong's a little bit harsh on myself. The things that don't go exactly as I planned. Some things go exactly as you plan them, and you think, oh wow, that looks so good. And others, just in a moment, you cross-thread a little nut and you're a bit angry with yourself. Anyway, doesn't matter. Going to do the same at the front. The bracket is a bit twisted, which is possible that I'll have to tidy up with a bit of a blowtorch. And sometimes you get to the point where you think, gee, that's pretty close. I'm not going to worry about messing with that with heat. Let's get the other side on and have a closer look. So whilst I have dome nuts set aside for this, sitting on the bench, the regular nuts allow me to use the length of the threaded rod to adjust where the guard sits. I'm going to do it approximately because this wheel doesn't have a spacer on the left hand side, and so the wheel's not sitting exactly in the center of the forks, but it is very close. Right. Now comes the tedious and time-consuming bit of getting the guard to sit level and getting the guard to look equidistant around the rim. Let's change angles. Now for a first stab at that, that's actually not too bad. I'm standing behind the camera and you're looking at it. I would have said that this side needs to go down just a pinch, and you know, that's easy to do. And the wheel probably needs to come over just a pinch. But purely by flexing the guard, you get a different outcome. I need you to take a backward step to me while I mess with this a little bit and see if I can get it to look any different. And the raising and the lowering of these nuts, surprisingly, makes the guard sit really differently. And I didn't sort of believe it to begin with, but it absolutely does. For a first hit, it's probably really close enough for me, and I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep at this point. I actually haven't decided whether I'm going to keep this bike or not. That guard looks good. I'm going to dock those off, put dome nuts on them, and I'm going to feel good about them. Rightio, I'm getting game. These things, if worse comes to worse, it would take me 15 minutes to make a new stay. In the past, I have overthought these things way too long and not achieved enough quickly enough, and I'm not prepared to do that anymore. Getting the bike up and looking okay, I think is really, really important in enjoying it. Okay, there's a fair bit of finessing left to do, but for now, that looks pretty good, and you know, nobody could be unhappy about that. Let's push on. I'm going to do the back guard. That's really funny. I reckon last week I spent 15 minutes trying to get that guard on, and this week it's gone back on in a flash. I'll put a washer on the inside of the guard between the head of the bolt and the bolt itself, and I'm hoping not to damage the guards. Guards do end up with little tweaks in them. They've got a couple of marks from the hammer where I was riveting. Just is what it is, just telling you. That's probably tight enough. Let me grab these stays and we'll get them on the bike. Guard's not looking too bad. I'm still missing one wheel nut. I keep forgetting to make one, which is really silly. But the guard's sitting more or less down the middle of the frame, and you know, little finessing can be done later. Here's the rivet job, and you can see the ends of the dome nuts. You can see that the bracketry's ever so slightly not straight. That could be a twist in the bracket, a twist in the guard. That guard's about down the middle of the frame, and there's the rivets on top. Again, the brackets. Now, There's a lot of finessing to do to get these to sit just right. Again, they're just made by a guy in his shed, so they're not factory made. They look reasonably authentic to me. To others, well, maybe they don't, but to me, they kind of do. Here's the front. You can see the rivet. That looks super. The rivets look really good. So I'm going to have one more thing to talk about, and that's the front wheel. So contention or disagreement about the front wheel, I'm not sure, but I had a suggestion that the original front wheel was the way to go, and that a cobbled together front brake wouldn't be a good idea. I've got no intention of using a front brake. I see images of these bikes from all around the world where they just have a plain hub with no front brake. Now, admittedly, this bike did have one. You can see where it would have mounted on this side, and that's what it would have had. In Australia, there's no requirement for me to have a front brake. So I was never going to put a stirrup on it. I was going to leave it alone. If I had the correct brake plate and shoes and fittings, I would put the original hub on it, or what I think is the original hub. But I don't have it, and I don't have anything to interchange with it at this point. So this wheel allows me to get the bike up and rolling round, and I personally think putting a new bead edge rim and relacing this and painting or powder coating the hub will get a very authentic look to the bike. And if I ever came across a front wheel, I'd be delighted to own one, and I'd be delighted to have a front brake. In the meantime, I'm not gonna. That's me done. It's not really an episode. It's just a little bit of work one afternoon. Oh, well, 2 afternoons. I finished up the stays, and I've hot riveted and fitted these and started to adjust them. It is what it is some weeks. Sorry it's not a great episode, but this is what I'm up to. Cheers.